My daughter whispered multiplication tables in her sleep, even after I lost custody. When I tried to apologize at her father's funeral, she threw up and ran. When I begged her to talk to me just for a moment, she stared at the floor and said, "You taught me to calculate, not to feel." I stayed silent. That was 6 months ago. Last night, she held her newborn daughter while a police officer handed me the permanent restraining order. Listen, I never thought I'd be one of those parents posting here, but I need to vent about how my ex-husband is destroying our daughter's future, and apparently I'm the bad guy for caring about her education. 3 months ago, my sweet Jade came home crying because she failed another math quiz. My baby girl, tears streaming down her face like she'd watched Bambi's mom die for the first time. That's when something inside me just clicked. I'm a former engineer. Numbers are my love language. I promised her right then that mommy would fix this. We started with simple 30-minute sessions after dinner, just me and her at the kitchen table. She'd work through problems while I encouraged her like a mathematical cheerleader. It was perfect. We were bonding, and more importantly, she was learning. You guys, the transformation was incredible. I created these adorable worksheets with unicorns teaching fractions. Jade loves unicorns almost as much as life itself. Her grades shot up faster than my wine consumption after PTA meetings. Speaking of which, I joined the math committee because obviously they needed someone who understood the importance of a solid mathematical foundation. Other parents started asking for my tutoring tips. I was like the Gordon Ramsay of elementary mathematics, minus the swearing. I bought every educational app that didn't look like it was designed by someone having a seizure. Created spreadsheets to track her progress because if you're not measuring, you're not improving, right? Jade was thriving. Her confidence bloomed like a beautiful flower. Even her teacher said she'd never seen such dedicated parental involvement. Okay, so maybe 5 a.m. math sessions sound extreme, but hear me out. The brain is freshest in the morning. It's science. Jade was a little grumpy at first, but excellence requires sacrifice. Her teacher started getting weird about my daily progress emails, so I had to CC the principal to ensure accountability. When Jade wanted to join soccer, I explained that we could incorporate physics calculations into our study time instead. 2 birds, 1 mathematically perfect stone. Then I added the living room cameras. They were just to monitor her independent work. Trust but verify, as Reagan said. Pretty sure he was talking about homework. And yes, I made her friends solve entrance equations before playdates, but shouldn't we normalize academic excellence? Some other parents suggested I was being too intense. Probably the same parents who let their kids eat non-organic snacks. I joined parent groups from 7 different schools, thank you Facebook aliases, to ensure Jade was getting the most comprehensive education possible. The teacher had the audacity to suggest I ease up, so naturally I had to document her teaching deficiencies. 23 pages of deficiencies to be exact. We pulled Jade from art and music. Finger painting won't get her into an Ivy League. Everything fell apart because of an 89%. 89%. Do you know what they call the med student who graduates with 89%? Not a doctor. Jade needed to understand this. So yes, we reviewed every problem until she got them perfect. If that took until 3 a.m., then that's what it took. Champions don't clock out. The school nurse overreacted completely about some stress-related stomach issues. Kids get tummy aches. My stomach hurt all through my PhD program, and look at me now. During parent-teacher conferences, I presented my research. 47 pages proving the curriculum was failing our children. They refused to advance Jade 2 grades, basically admitting they wanted to hold her back. That's when my ex decided to swoop in like some discount superhero. Jade called him crying about being tired. Of course she's tired. Success is exhausting. He showed up during our evening multiplication drills, making a scene because Jade was doing them standing up. It helps with focus. I tried explaining the failure trajectory charts I'd made. Very clear data showing how each lost study hour compounds into lifetime earnings loss. But no, apparently I'm psychotic for caring about my daughter's future. The neighbors called the police because we were disturbing the peace. Now Jade lives with her father, who probably thinks times tables are something you find at IKEA. The court-ordered therapist claims Jade was hiding food and showing signs of extreme stress. She's 8. Everything is extreme to 8-year-olds. They gave me supervised visitation, like I'm some kind of criminal instead of a mother who gives a damn. But I'm not giving up. I email her study guides through my lawyer. Praise legal loophole. And yes, I monitor her new school's portal through a friend's account. Someone has to ensure she's not falling behind. Last week that friend mentioned Jade still wakes up at 5 a.m. sometimes. Good. Maybe some habits stick and she's spending that time studying. Her father sent me a video of Jade at some ridiculous birthday party, eating cake and laughing. No flashcards in sight. In the background, I heard her tell another kid she used to be really good at math but doesn't have to be anymore. I immediately got started preparing materials for when she would turn 18 and realize what she lost. Only the day of her 18th birthday came and went. No Jade. I thought I lost all hope of my baby girl coming home until her father passed away. I realized that it was a sign. I knew I'd be able to get through to her at the funeral. I stood outside the funeral home, watching mourners file in through the heavy oak doors. My hands trembled as I smoothed down my black dress for the 100th time. 10 years. 10 years since I'd seen my baby girl, and now her father's death was my only chance to reach her. The parking lot filled quickly. I recognized some faces from the old neighborhood, though most looked through me like I was invisible. I waited until the service started before slipping inside. The usher handed me a program, and there it was. Jade's name listed as giving the eulogy. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I took a seat in the back corner, partially hidden by a large flower arrangement. The casket sat at the front, surrounded by photos of my ex-husband's life. Photos that included Jade at various ages, but stopped abruptly around age 8. No pictures of me, of course. The service droned on. I barely heard the words, too focused on scanning the front rows for my daughter. Then she stood up, and my breath caught. My little girl had grown into a beautiful woman. She walked to the podium with confidence I'd never seen before, though her hands gripped the edges tightly. She spoke about her father with such love, such gratitude for saving her life. Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper. When she finished, she returned to her seat next to a young man who wrapped his arm around her protectively. Marcus, I would later learn his name was. The service ended, and people began filing toward the reception hall. I hung back, timing my entrance carefully. The room buzzed with quiet conversations and the clink of coffee cups. I spotted Jade near the dessert table, talking with an older woman I recognized as my ex-husband's sister, Linda. I moved closer, weaving through clusters of mourners. My mouth went dry as I approached. Jade held a coffee cup, gesturing as she spoke. She looked so much like me at that age, but without the stress lines I'd carried. My baby girl, I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. Jade's coffee cup began trembling. The liquid sloshed dangerously close to the rim. She turned slowly, her face draining of color. The aunt stepped back, recognition dawning on her face. You can't be here, Jade whispered to Marcus, though her eyes never left mine. The conversations around us quieted. People sensed the tension and began creating space, pretending to be interested in the memorial photo boards while obviously watching our interaction. I reached out toward her, desperate to touch my daughter after so many years. Marcus stepped between us, his body language protective but not aggressive. That's when I noticed it. Jade's hand had moved instinctively to cover her stomach, a gesture I recognized from my own pregnancy. Jade's 3 months pregnant, Marcus announced firmly, as if the information was both a shield and a weapon. The room seemed to tilt. A grandmother. I could be a grandmother. My mind raced with possibilities, teaching my grandchild advanced concepts, ensuring they reached their full potential, correcting the mistakes I'd made with Jade. Linda grabbed my arm, pulling me aside with surprising strength. The restraining order expired, but decency hasn't, she hissed. Her free hand slipped something into mine, a photo. I glanced down to see young Jade, maybe 7 years old, crying over homework at our kitchen table. I remembered that night. We'd worked until dawn on long division. The funeral director approached our tense group, clipboard in hand. Excuse me, but I need to arrange the family seating for the graveside service. I saw my opportunity. I'm the widow's. I was his wife. I should be with family. Jade's face went even paler. She pressed her hand to her mouth and bolted toward the restrooms. Marcus moved to follow her, but I was already walking in that direction. He blocked my path. She doesn't need you, he said quietly but firmly. She's sick. I'm her mother. You're the reason she's sick. I heard the bathroom door slam. Other mourners pretended not to notice the confrontation, but I felt their judgment. I waited until Marcus was distracted by Linda before slipping away toward the restrooms. Inside, I found Jade's purse abandoned on the counter. The contents had spilled out. Wallet, keys, and a small bottle of prenatal vitamins that had rolled toward the sink. From one of the stalls, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone being violently ill. I'm really curious about how she's spinning this whole narrative, claiming she was just helping with homework when clearly something much more intense was happening here. The way she describes those 5 a.m. study sessions and keeping Jade up until 3 a.m. makes me. I knocked softly on the stall door. Jade, honey, let me help. The retching stopped. I heard scrambling, the slam of another stall door, then the emergency exit alarm blared as she fled out the back. By the time I pushed through the heavy door, she was gone. The security camera mounted above the door blinked its red light at me, recording everything. I returned to find the reception breaking up, people heading to their cars for the graveside service. I sat in my car, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. I still had her old number saved. My fingers moved without thinking, attaching a photo I'd kept all these years. Her ultrasound from when I was pregnant with her. I know what you're going through, I typed, then hit send. At the cemetery, I kept my distance, watching from behind a large memorial stone. Jade stood between Marcus and Linda, his arm around her waist. I saw him show her his phone. She read something, then deleted it, but not immediately. She hesitated first. After the service, as people dispersed, I overheard Jade talking to a woman about her age. Sarah, someone called her. I keep having these nightmares, Jade was saying, about becoming like her. What if I can't stop myself? What if it's genetic? That night, I sat at my computer, unable to sleep. I pulled up Facebook, searching through mutual connections until I found what I needed. Jade worked at Riverside Elementary as an art teacher. The school's page had photos from recent events. There she was, surrounded by children's paintings, smiling genuinely. I clicked through to her lesson plans, posted for parents, not a single mathematical concept. Every project focused on creativity, self-expression, freedom. She'd eliminated numbers entirely from her teaching. The next morning, I researched pregnancy websites, noting which keywords expectant mothers searched for. I spent hours creating a blog about pregnancy support, carefully embedding photos only Jade would recognize. The unicorn from her old worksheets, the kitchen table where we'd studied. I made sure to optimize for the search terms she'd likely use. My phone rang. Carol, my sister. I heard you showed up at the funeral, she said without preamble. She's pregnant, Carol. She needs her mother now more than ever. Does she? Or do you need her? I hung up on her. Later that week, I learned about the baby shower planned for next month through a former math committee parent who still spoke to me. The same parent mentioned that Jade had seemed anxious lately, flinching whenever anyone mentioned enrichment activities for children. I drove past Riverside Elementary, timing it for when I knew she'd be leaving. Her car was parked in the same spot 3 days in a row. She always checked the parking lot before walking to her vehicle, scanning like she was looking for someone. Dr. Chen's office was in the same building as my dentist. Pure coincidence that I scheduled a cleaning for the same day and time I'd overheard Jade mention her therapy appointment. I saw her in the hallway, but she didn't see me. The receptionist at Chen's office was on the phone when I passed, telling someone that they couldn't give out appointment information. I started volunteering at the pregnancy center where one of Jade's friends had mentioned she attended classes. I made sure my shifts were in the evening when working mothers would come. One night, I was gathering my things to leave when I heard familiar voices approaching. I slipped out quickly, but not before hearing through the closing door. June 15th and Dr. Morrison at Regional. The grocery store security footage would show I shopped at normal times, always during busy hours when lots of people were around. If I happened to notice patterns in when certain cars were in the parking lot, that was just observation. Marcus's mother lived in a nice neighborhood. I drove through occasionally, perfectly legal on public streets. One evening, I saw them all having dinner through the dining room window. Marcus, his mother, and Jade. Jade was crying, and I saw her gesture toward the window. Marcus's mother stood up and closed the curtains. I tried sending baby gifts through Carol, beautiful handmade items from a local boutique. She returned them the next day. Marcus intercepted them, she said. Jade never even saw them. Maybe that's for the best. I'm trying to make amends. Are you? Or are you trying to regain control? At the grocery store, a young woman confronted me in the cereal aisle. Mika, Jade's best friend from high school. She still wakes up reciting times tables, Mika said, her voice shaking with anger. Do you know that? She counts in her sleep. 7 times 8 is 56. Over and over. I left my cart and walked out. The blog was getting traffic. I could see in the analytics that someone from our city had spent 47 minutes reading through old posts. They'd clicked on every embedded photo. I posted more content about managing pregnancy anxiety, about breaking cycles, about the importance of grandmothers. Then came the email from Riverside Elementary's principal. Someone had sent an anonymous concern about a pregnant teacher's emotional stability. He wanted to meet with Jade to discuss her fitness to continue teaching. The email was CC'd to me by mistake, or maybe not a mistake, since I recognized the sender as a former math committee ally. I knew I was running out of time. The baby would come, and with it, either my last chance at redemption or my final exile. I had to be strategic. I had to be smart. I had to find a way back to my daughter. I arranged to accidentally encounter Marcus's mother at the prenatal yoga studio downtown. The timing required careful planning. I'd watched the parking lot for weeks to learn her schedule. When she walked in carrying her mat, I positioned myself near the registration desk, pretending to study the class offerings. She recognized me immediately. Her face tightened, but politeness won out. I mentioned how wonderful it was that Jade had such supportive in-laws, especially with the baby coming. I let slip Jade's middle name, Marie, the one only family would know. Her expression softened slightly. During the conversation, I suggested how helpful it would be to track the baby's development mathematically. Brain development milestones, growth percentiles, feeding optimization schedules. I watched her eyes light up with interest. She took mental notes, I could tell. 3 days later, Jade called Carol in tears. Marcus's mother had presented her with a color-coded development tracking system over dinner. Jade recognized my manipulation tactics immediately. The systematic approach, the emphasis on measurement, the subtle implication that anything less than optimization was failure. At the community center's centennial celebration, I ran into Mrs. Patterson, who'd worked at Jade's daycare years ago. She grabbed my arm, her weathered face creasing with concern. She remembered how Jade used to hide in the reading corner during pickup time, counting ceiling tiles until I left. 147 tiles, she recalled. Jade knew them all. Marcus's sister received my Facebook friend request while Jade was visiting. I'd crafted my profile carefully. Recent photos from charity events, posts about child development, shares from parenting experts. Jade saw the notification pop up on the laptop screen. She showed Marcus's sister sister the screenshot she'd saved of my 47 math education group memberships. The friend request was declined within minutes. I noticed Jade had started creating an evidence file. She'd been screenshotting my blog posts, saving them in a folder she probably thought was private. The folder name appeared briefly in one of her social media posts before she deleted it, in case she escalates. Smart girl. She'd learned to document everything, just like I'd taught her. The police took her report more seriously than I'd expected. An officer called me, professionally explaining that given my history, they were advising Jade on documentation needed for a restraining order renewal. I remained calm, cooperative. I had done nothing illegal. Yet, 3 former math committee parents approached Jade at the farmer's market. I watched from behind a fruit stand as they apologized, one of them crying as she admitted her son wouldn't draw anymore. He'd been part of my advanced mathematics program. Now he calculated the mathematical probability of failure before attempting any creative task. I discovered Jade's pregnancy cravings routine through careful observation. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she stopped at the same bakery for their lavender lemon scones. I began timing my visits accordingly, always entering just as she was leaving, close enough to be seen, far enough to avoid direct confrontation. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, my college roommate who'd become a pediatrician, called me unexpectedly. She admitted she'd warned authorities about me years ago after I'd described my optimization techniques for Jade's development. She'd been keeping tabs on me through mutual friends. The medical community, she informed me, was aware. At the farmer's market, I finally crossed paths with Jade directly. She saw me from across the crowd, her hand immediately moving to her stomach, but instead of fleeing, she maintained eye contact while performing breathing exercises. She pulled out her phone, calmly calling Marcus while never breaking her steady gaze. Other shoppers noticed the tension, creating a protective buffer around her. The baby shower planning created new urgency. I knew her friends would gather, knew she'd be vulnerable, surrounded by talk of child rearing and development. The date was set for next month. I had to act before then. Jade's former babysitter, Danielle, contacted her with disturbing news. I tried to hire her for information about the pregnancy, offering triple her normal rates. Wow, the pregnancy center volunteering move is something else. Nothing says giving back to the community, like accidentally on purpose scheduling your shifts when your daughter might show up there. The desperation in my voice, Danielle reported, had frightened her. She'd recorded the conversation, thinking Jade might need it. Carol visited my apartment and found it transformed. Blog analytics covered one wall, printed and highlighted. Jade's school schedule was pinned to a bulletin board. Sticky notes calculating optimal contact windows based on traffic patterns and her stress levels. Carol took photos before I noticed her documenting everything. I made a calculated move, offering to donate $10,000 to Riverside Elementary for art supplies. My only condition, one coffee meeting with Jade. The principal forwarded my email to her immediately, recognizing the manipulation. Jade's response came through the school lawyer. My neighbor caught me photographing Marcus's family house from the street. She confronted me, threatening to call the police. When I tried to explain I was just a grandmother wanting to see where my grandchild would live, she made good on her threat. The officers issued a formal warning. No arrest, but now there was a record. Cleaning out old files, I discovered therapy receipts from when I had custody of Jade. The dates aligned perfectly with what I'd called intensive study sessions. Dr. Morrison had expressed concerns about Jade's anxiety levels even then. I'd switched therapists 3 times, always finding someone who understood the importance of academic excellence. My social circle had shrunk dramatically. Only Carol and 2 former committee members still answered my calls. Others let them go to voicemail, their silence speaking volumes. The community was closing ranks around Jade. At the prenatal clinic, I left my reconciliation journal on a chair in the waiting room, knowing Jade would find it. The entries dated back to her pregnancy announcement, detailing my plans for grandma school curriculum, mathematical learning through play, early equation exposure, optimal brain development strategies. She turned it over to the police. Marcus faced pressure from his own mother to allow just one supervised visit. He chose his wife over family peace, sleeping in the nursery to watch the windows after I'd been spotted in their neighborhood. Their bond had strengthened through this crisis. They'd developed code words, safety protocols, a united front I couldn't penetrate. I still had access to Jade's childhood medical records through an old patient portal that hadn't been updated. The temptation to use this information burned daily, but I resisted. Some lines, even I wouldn't cross. Yet, the coffee shop confrontation happened on a Thursday morning. I approached Jade directly, no pretense of accident. She looked up from her herbal tea, her face calm. Then she began reciting multiplication tables in a flat, emotionless voice. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 9 is 63. Over and over, showing the permanent damage I'd inflicted. Other patrons stared. I retreated. Mrs. Henderson, Jade's former 3rd grade teacher, provided a sworn statement about documented stress symptoms from elementary school. Stomach aches during math tests, hair pulling during timed drills, silent tears during parent-teacher conferences. She'd tried to intervene, but I'd had her removed from Jade's educational team. The math committee parents began comparing notes about their damaged children. Victoria's daughter had developed an eating disorder, weighing her food to ensure mathematical precision. Another child compulsively counted steps, unable to enter a room without calculating the most efficient path. The pattern was undeniable. At a PTA meeting, 3 families shared similar stories. The principal announced a ban on acceleration programs, citing mental health concerns. Parents looked at me with a mixture of pity and horror. I'd become a cautionary tale. Jade's support network impressed me despite myself. Friends created a phone tree, checking on her throughout the day. Safe spaces were established along her daily routes. The bookstore, the cafe, the art supply shop, places where staff knew to watch for me, to offer her refuge if needed. The OBGYN parking lot confrontation was inevitable. I waited by her car, needing to explain. When she emerged from her appointment, Marcus beside her, she didn't run. She walked straight toward me, keys gripped between her fingers like a weapon. I admitted I just wanted her to be special, to have every opportunity. Her response cut deeper than any insult could have. She simply said she was 8 years old when I'd stolen her childhood, replaced it with equations and anxiety. Several neighbors approached Jade with apologies. They admitted they'd heard crying from our house years ago, but assumed it was dedicated parenting. One elderly woman wept, saying she should have called the police when she saw Jade doing jumping jacks at midnight to stay awake for studying. My options narrowed as Jade's pregnancy progressed. Security cameras appeared at her school. Marcus buried their roots home. Her friends formed human shields at public events. The community had mobilized against me. Alexandra, one of my ex-husband's friends, revealed she'd helped him document Jade's exhaustion years ago. Videos showed my 8-year-old falling asleep standing up during multiplication drills, her little body swaying with fatigue. He'd built a case I never knew existed. I consulted family law websites obsessively, ensuring my actions remained within legal bounds. Stalking laws were specific. Harassment had clear definitions. I walked the line carefully, knowing one misstep could cost me any future chance of access. 12 families formed a support group for parents recovering from academic abuse of their children. They met weekly at the community center, sharing stories of children who couldn't play without calculating scores, who measured their worth in percentiles, who saw failure in anything less than perfection. My attempts to infiltrate the baby shower planning failed spectacularly. Every vendor in town had been pre-warned. declined, provided with my photo. The bakery refused my cake order. The party supply store flagged my credit card. The venue had my name on a do not admit list. At the church nursery, I inquired about their mathematical learning programs for infants. The volunteer recognized something in my eyes, the same intensity she'd seen before. She excused herself and returned with the pastor, who gently but firmly asked me to leave. Social media posts supporting Jade appeared daily, carefully avoiding my name but making their message clear. Let children play. Learning without fear. Breaking the cycle. The community rallied around her in ways that both impressed and infuriated me. Hospital records confirmed what everyone suspected. Jade's childhood symptoms, the stomach aches, the insomnia, the anxiety attacks, aligned perfectly with psychological abuse patterns. Dr. Chen had been building this case for years, waiting for Jade to be ready to confront the truth. The due date approached like a ticking clock. I calculated I had 6 weeks maximum before everything changed. 6 weeks to find a way back into their lives, to prove I'd changed, to claim my role as grandmother. The library confrontation destroyed any remaining public sympathy. I'd approached the children's librarian about hosting a mathematical story time for babies. When she refused, citing concerns from other parents, I raised my voice. Security removed me as I shouted about the importance of early numerical literacy. Every branch in the county banned me that day. Jade's fear crystallized in a conversation Carol overheard at the pregnancy center. She worried that if she failed at motherhood, someone would take her baby away. The cycle of fear I'd created continued to ripple through her life, affecting decisions I'd never anticipated. But Jade showed growth I hadn't expected. She created an art therapy program for academically pressured children, naming it Beyond Numbers. Children painted their feelings, sculpted their fears, drew their dreams without measurement or evaluation. She was healing others while healing herself. The math committee officially disbanded after a painful group session where we confronted the collective harm we'd caused. Parents wept as they shared stories of children who couldn't enjoy birthday parties without calculating the optimal gift-to-guest ratio, who saw report cards as verdicts on their worth. Truth became undeniable through accumulated testimony. 17 witnesses provided statements for Jade's restraining order file. Teachers, neighbors, babysitters, therapists, all painting a picture of systematic emotional abuse disguised as educational excellence. For one brief week, I felt Jade might be relaxing her vigilance. I hadn't appeared at any of her usual locations. She managed her first full night's sleep in weeks, according to Carol. Perhaps she thought I'd finally accepted boundaries. Then I made my final manipulation attempt, announcing I was writing a parenting book about raising successful children. The publisher, a small academic press, initially showed interest. Within days, Jade's lawyer had sent them documentation of abuse, court orders, and witness statements. The deal evaporated. The baby shower incident went viral within parenting networks. Someone filmed me trying to slip mathematical flashcards into the gift pile. The video spread through mommy blogs, parenting forums, and social media. 3 separate parenting groups formally banned me from their online communities. Jade's art students created a mural celebrating learning without fear. Children of all ages contributed, painting images of joy, creativity, and freedom. No numbers appeared anywhere in the design. The local news covered the unveiling, though they carefully avoided mentioning the inspiration behind it. Unexpected champions emerged from my past. Former students I'd tutored came forward with their own stories. There's something really strange about her keeping therapy receipts that prove she knew Jade was struggling back then. Why hold on to evidence that shows you ignored professional warnings? Makes me wonder if part of her always knew what she was doing was wrong, but just couldn't stop herself from pushing harder. An engineering firm revealed they'd fired me for micromanaging junior employees to the point of harassment. The pattern of my behavior stretched back decades. The accumulated evidence painted a clear picture. Timeline charts showed escalation patterns. Testimony revealed systematic emotional abuse. Documentation proved lasting psychological damage. Everything pointed to one conclusion. I had weaponized education into abuse. Then came a breakthrough. Jade realized she'd gone 3 straight days without thinking about math. No calculating tips at restaurants, no counting steps, no measuring time in mathematical increments. For the first time since childhood, numbers had released their grip on her mind. The full truth emerged through Dr. Chen's session notes, which Jade finally authorized for release. The documentation showed years of PTSD specifically triggered by numerical patterns. She couldn't help calculate restaurant tips without breaking into cold sweats. The damage ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Documentation from 17 different sources validated the systematic psychological damage I'd created. Teachers, therapists, neighbors, and former friends all provided testimony. The evidence package for the restraining order grew thicker each day. Jade couldn't even look at multiplication tables without her hands shaking. The judge reviewing the case expressed horror at what she called education weaponized into abuse. She scheduled the hearing for the restraining order renewal, noting the extensive documentation of ongoing harassment attempts. The court date loomed just 2 weeks before Jade's due date. I'd filed a grandparental rights motion weeks earlier, hoping to establish legal access before the baby arrived. My lawyer assured me I had grounds, especially since the original restraining order had expired. The hearing was scheduled dangerously close to Jade's due date, adding another layer of stress to her pregnancy. Legal maneuvering began in earnest. I hired the best family law attorney I could afford, someone who specialized in grandparental access cases. Jade's lawyer countered with documentation of my recent behavior, the hospital visit attempts, the blog manipulation, the surveillance patterns. Each side built their case methodically, then everything changed. Jade went into premature labor during a particularly stressful deposition preparation. The stress of the legal battle had taken its toll. Marcus rushed her to regional hospital while I sat in my lawyer's office, unaware that my grandchild was arriving early. Carol called me with the news, her voice tight with worry. The baby was coming 6 weeks early. Complications had arisen. Jade's blood pressure had spiked dangerously. The doctors were monitoring her closely, concerned about both mother and child. Marcus's mother expressed deep worry about the stress affecting the baby, but she maintained her support for the boundaries they'd established. She told Carol that whatever Jade needed, the family would provide. The message was clear. I wasn't welcome at the hospital. I couldn't stay away. Using fake volunteer credentials I'd created months earlier, I attempted to access the maternity ward. The security screening caught the falsification immediately. Within minutes, security was called to the maternity ward. I was escorted out before I could even reach Jade's floor. The confrontation with hospital security led to my arrest for criminal trespass and fraud. As I sat in the back of the police car, I learned that Jade's condition had worsened. The stress of knowing I tried to breach the hospital had caused additional complications. The doctors made the critical decision to perform an emergency cesarean section. The cascade of events that followed changed everything. While I was being processed at the police station, my grandchild entered the world. While I sat in a holding cell, Jade hemorrhaged on the operating table. While I waited for my lawyer, my daughter fought for her life. All parties converged at the hospital over the next 24 hours. Jade remained in intensive care while I was detained at the county jail. Between us, in the NICU, lay my grandchild, a tiny girl whose name I didn't even know. The physical distance mirrored the emotional chasm I'd created. My lawyer arranged for my release on bail with strict conditions, no contact with Jade, Marcus, or any medical facilities where they might be present. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent months trying to orchestrate meetings, and now the law explicitly forbade them. During Jade's recovery, the truth about my motivations finally surfaced. Carol had kept old letters memoirs I'd written during my own academic struggles in college. They revealed how I'd failed repeatedly, how I'd projected my own inadequacies onto my daughter. I hadn't been trying to help Jade succeed. I'd been trying to fix my own failures through her. Carol made her choice. She testified at the emergency restraining order hearing about my deteriorating grip on reality. She admitted finding achievement algorithms I'd created for the baby before she was even born. She described my apartment walls covered in development charts and optimization strategies. Her testimony sealed my fate. Jade faced the ultimate decision from her hospital bed. The court offered two options: a supervised visitation program with strict oversight, or a permanent no-contact order that would last until her daughter turned 18. The choice would define not just our relationship, but the environment in which her child would grow. She chose permanent no contact. Through her lawyer, she delivered a statement that cut to the core. She chose her baby's peace over my redemption. She wouldn't risk subjecting her daughter to even a fraction of what she'd endured. The judge approved the order immediately. The permanence of that decision hit me as I stood in the courthouse hallway. I would never know my grandchild's name. I would never see her first steps, hear her first words, or watch her grow. The protection order was comprehensive. No contact through third parties, no gifts, no letters, no proximity to their home, school, or any location they frequented. My final manipulation attempt came through Carol. I begged her to at least tell me the baby's name, to share photos, to be my connection to the family I'd lost. Carol's response was to enter therapy herself, recognizing how my behavior had affected her too. Even my sister needed professional help to process the damage I'd caused. Jade emerged from the hospital victorious but scarred. She held her daughter while carefully avoiding any number-based milestone tracking. Marcus noted that their daughter was perfect in every way that mattered: healthy, loved, and protected from the mathematical prison I tried to build. The court summons for the permanent restraining order hearing arrived at my apartment while I sorted through Jade's old worksheets. 20 years of educational materials, all evidence of my obsession. The legal documents made everything final. No appeals, no modifications, no hope of reconciliation. My last supporter, a friend from the original math committee, unfriended me on social media after learning the full story from the court documents. The isolation was complete. The parenting groups had banned me, the community had rejected me, and now even my final ally had walked away. Jade created a new life for her daughter, one deliberately devoid of numerical pressure. The nursery contained no number decorations, no counting books, no mathematical mobiles. Instead, it overflowed with art supplies, musical instruments, and creative toys. She was building the childhood she'd never had. The name Jade chose for her daughter remained private, kept from all public records to prevent my search attempts. She'd thought of everything, protecting her child from any possibility of contact. The birth certificate, school enrollment, medical records, all would be shielded from my reach. Marcus supported every decision, having witnessed firsthand the damage I'd inflicted. He varied their routines constantly, installed security systems, and maintained vigilance against any attempted contact. Their united front was impenetrable, built on shared determination to break the cycle of abuse. My days became consumed with the very numbers that had destroyed my relationship with Jade. I tracked the hours since I'd last seen her, calculated the days since my grandchild's birth, measured time and missed milestones and lost opportunities. The mathematical precision I'd forced on my daughter now imprisoned me. The elementary school where Jade taught added my photo to their security watch list. The pregnancy center where I'd volunteered banned me from the premises. Every institution that dealt with children in our community knew my face, knew my history, knew to protect families from my influence. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by unused flashcards and development charts, finally understanding the emptiness of excellence without love. The spreadsheets and algorithms meant nothing. The optimization strategies were worthless. All the mathematical precision in the world couldn't calculate the value of what I'd lost. Somewhere across town, a little girl was learning to finger paint without fear, to explore without measurement, to exist without the crushing weight of expectations. She would grow up knowing that love meant safety, not spreadsheets. She would discover joy in imperfection and beauty in creative chaos. Jade's greatest achievement wasn't the math she'd learned under my relentless pressure. It was the strength she'd found to escape, to heal, and to ensure her daughter would never experience that same suffocating drive for perfection. She had broken the cycle completely and irrevocably. The generational pattern of abuse disguised as education ended with her. While I sat alone with my theories and charts, Jade was building a family based on unconditional love, creative expression, and the freedom to fail without fear. She had won by choosing her daughter's peace over my redemption. The restraining order would last 18 years. By then, my grandchild would be an adult, free to make her own choices about contact. But I knew the truth. Jade would raise her daughter with love, not manipulation. There would be no reunion, no reconciliation, no redemption. The cycle was broken. I had created my own prison, built from multiplication tables and performance metrics. Now I lived in it alone, counting the days I'd never get back, calculating the love I'd never receive, measuring the emptiness of a life devoted to numbers instead of nurturing. My daughter's escape was complete, and my isolation was absolute. Thanks for letting me wander along with you through all of this. Take care.